Bell plunges into the end zone. Touchdown, Nebraska.
Nebraska wins its 5th national championship.
Giving you an inside look at everything going on in Husker Nation. This is the KLIN Husker Hour.
Kicks and deals the 2-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Strike 3. Jackson Brockett has the first 9-inning no-hitter for the Nebraska Cornhuskers since 1954, and he did it on his 12th strikeout. That's it! They're down and one! Exclamation point! Pump the brakes!
Now your hosts, KLIN contributor Cole Stukenholtz and sports director Nate Rohr.
Good Saturday morning. Welcome to another edition of the KLIN Husker Hour, post-media days edition, another position preview. And Nate, the last one before the month that Nebraska will play a real college football game.
Yeah, we're getting ready to jump into the deep end of the pool here, so it's going to be fun. We're going to have a whole month of practice to break down, obsess over, scrutinize, and then they hit the field at the end of the month. So right. we're almost there, everybody. We've almost made it through the off season. Yes, and along with that goes, we've almost made it through the summer. My family and I, we are going to Disneyland next week, Nate, the happiest place on earth outside of Memorial Stadium. And we're going to, we're going to be gone. I'll miss next Saturday's show. You'll have to go on without me. I'm sure you'll be all right. But we're excited, and I'm not dreading it too much. Just trying to track 4 kids around a giant theme park. We've got, I think, everything ready to go. Just about. Just have to kind of make sure everything's packed, and we'll fly out and have a great time. And the way that we have kind of planned for all of this stuff with this trip, it's probably not unlike getting everything kind of lined up for doing, a football season. If you're Matt Rule, you have to, recruit all the players. You have to go through the off season. You have to build your staff. It's a little bit different. Hopefully the 18, 19-year-old kids are a little bit more mature than my 6-year-old or 9-year-old, but still sometimes it probably doesn't seem that way. So, so you have all this foundation laid now if you're Matt Rule, and you come into this season, and the media days is kind of the unofficial kickoff to it. And you're presenting your case as to why you're going to be better this year, why you're not going to lose close games, why you're going to take that next step as a program. And I think, coming into it, you expected him to do all those things, and you expected him to do all those things pretty well. And I mean, there's one thing that I think maybe everybody was expecting him to respond about, and that was the Scott Frost comments with, "Hey, don't take the wrong job." And I mean, I, for one, didn't hear a thing about how Matt Rule responded to Scott Frost's comments. because he was an adult about it, because he knows how to play this game. He knows how to take advantage of the opportunity to have the media in front of him and turn it around on its head and say, hey, this program was not in a great place when I got here, but this is a great job now because of all of the things that we've done. Look, fall is going to be games on the field, but Matt Rule knows what he's doing in talking season, and talking season's just about over, but this is where he does a great job to lay that foundation, make every preparation that he can, and set the players on the course for whatever happens this season. Yeah, I mean, Matt Rule is so skilled at getting his message, his side of the story, measuring what needs to be said in that moment, and then minimizing distractions for his team, and kind of quelling a story, because, I mean, his response had about a 24-hour life cycle to it, which it naturally would. It was a little surprising to me, quite frankly, because the perception I've always had is that Nebraska is top-notch in facilities and top-notch in quote-unquote support, which can be most directly expressed through the NIL operation. And whether or not that was the case when Matt Rule took over, it feels like they've been very aggressive about addressing that. Thank you to the Pede family, apparently.
Yeah. Nice little call out for those guys.
Yes. Yes. But it feels like there were issues there. And it, you know what it did? It sort of took some heat off of Scott Frost, because he's saying, look, for those of you who thought that the football program was in optimum shape and it was just the guy in the headset screwing it up, there were things that were not quite in place. And yeah, there are things Scott Frost could have done better. There are things everybody can do better in every job. And there's still a lot of responsibility that belongs to Scott Frost. But there were also things that weren't quite in place yet. And I know Matt Rule and his staff have been aggressive about addressing those things. And also, you know, there are some of those things that were being addressed. They just hadn't gotten there yet, talking about the facilities, and they didn't have a sauna and all that. So it was a very skillful way. It just shows his forethought in that aspect. And it goes back to something I think we've said on the show, that no coach, I think, in Nebraska's modern history has used the media better than Matt Rule. You know, Tom Osborne was sneaky good at it. He was at least good at.
He's got the doctorate in psychology, like he knows what to do.
Yeah, I mean, using using the media to manage expectations, to limit how much hype was around the program, in a place where, you know, you give an inch of hype, it goes a mile. And Matt Rule, I think, has a really good understanding of the life cycle of the media and how to work with certain aspects of it to his advantage. Does it win you football games? Maybe, maybe not. But, you know, coaches talk about controlling your controllables. And as it turns out, there are a lot of controllables if you're the head football coach. And Matt's done a pretty good job, I think, at keeping those in line.
Yeah, we're live on the StreamYard. If you want to head over to KLIN socials, the YouTube page, Facebook, Twitter. We're also on the Husker Hour Facebook page right now as well. And we're going to have an offensive line preview today. No player that we talked to, but Henry Letofsky had some comments out at Media Days in Las Vegas. We're also going to be joined by Michael Bruntz from Husker247 this morning. We'll catch up with him and what he thought of really all of the offseason, but especially the happenings in Vegas and any of the recent stuff that's gone down with the program in terms of, you know, some position changes and expectations, you know, coming into this year. I don't know what your one comment that you maybe took away from Rule related to play on the field, a player, a position group. I'll give you one that stuck out to me. He called the defensive line, talking about the defensive line, this was a position that lost a lot coming from last year. You're not sure if the guys are ready to kind of fill the shoes of Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmaker, but there's a lot of potential there. Matt Rule decided to call the defensive line, they're going to be hell on wheels this season. So if that is something like where I said, I think, you know, when we did this position preview a few weeks back, I said, I don't think Matt Rule's going to let the defensive line be bad. Mm-hmm. So this kind of confirms my worldview, if you will. So he is very bullish on them. That was a takeaway that I had. And I'm still a little, you know, wait and see, like, let's, you know, who are these guys going to be? Which ones are going to take the jobs and run with them? Who's going to step up on third down? Who's going to rush the passer? Who's going to stop the run? But I do feel confident that a Matt Rule coached team is going to be good in the trenches at D-line. So that was one of the takeaways I had. Anything that you think stuck out when Matt Rule made comments over the week?
Well, I think there was a confidence about him all week long, or all session long, about we're going to be a good football team, and feeling like he was in a good place with where this team was. It was interesting that he called out the defensive line, because I know just sitting here, it's one of your biggest questions, and you feel like there's potential there. You feel like there are guys that can do it, but they're going to have to. I mean, last year's defense was predicated on getting great play from Ty Robinson and Hutmaker and Jamari Butler. And you have guys who are going to play this year who have to step up. You know, Cam Lenhart had an exciting freshman year and then didn't do a whole lot last year. And that felt like a step back. And if Nebraska football is going to go where it needs to go, Cam Lenhart's going to have a good year. He doesn't have to do Ty Robinson stuff, but he has to be a factor, or else that defense is not going to be very good. So it gives you a little faith that they've been able to replace what they had on the defensive line, and they're going to need to. But just the overall thought that we're a good team, the player-led stuff, a lot of the themes, it was just consistent. You know, it was consistent with the themes we've been hearing from this coaching staff since the calendar turned over to 2025, that players are taking greater ownership, that they feel more invested, that they feel like they can turn over control to them a little more, because you know, that's when you're a good program, when you, the coaches, have the faith to let the players lead for the most part. That's when you're in good shape. So it just felt consistent with what we've heard. And you know, going back to the comment earlier, I mean, Matt Rule knows how to play the media, so he wasn't going to sit there and say, "Oh, we're going to be terrible. It's been a real disappointing summer," or whatever. But you had I didn't hear much of anything that slowed my optimism for this team and this program, which that's what you want to do at that media days, you know, especially with a fan base that I feel like is so bitten by what's happened the last 10 years, 20 years. They're a little slow to buy into this team. You know, you look at how many tickets are still available for the game in Kansas City. How many tickets are available for the home season yet? Mm-hmm. And just the overall buzz. You know, if we were sitting here saying, "Hey, the quarterback's back, the schedule's pretty manageable," I think it used to be we'd be talking about, okay, can this team win a conference championship? You've heard none of that around here, and so I think Matt Rule's trying to feed that optimism a little bit, because you know, again, with his monitoring of the outer picture, everybody's a little skeptical yet.
Yeah, no question. And I think that's very warranted to be pretty skeptical, because it has been a while. As you said, it's the expectations have gone down on the outside. Internally, obviously, you have to drive those back up if you're Matt Rule and company, but it's Nebraska is not going to be expected to win the Big Ten this season. Now they can contend for a spot in that upper 25% or so, but it's an uphill climb that they're continuing to climb, and you feel like if you're Matt Rule, you're getting closer. You feel like the changes that were made in the offseason, some of the transfers, you're doing the things that you are, that you think you need to do to supplement what I feel like they like their last couple of classes, but maybe they're not quite ready yet in a couple places. So you go get Dane Key, you go get Rocco Spindler and Elijah Pritchett, you go get Deshaun Singleton. So that is, look, this is going to be a results-based season, obviously, and you're gonna have to do it on the field. But it's a pretty fascinating situation and season with a lot on the line, a lot that's been building towards 2025 in a lot of different ways, recruiting, on-field, coaching staff, all of it. So lots in the 2025 basket, as we've said, a lot this offseason. And we're going to talk more about that with Michael Bruntz right after this from Husker247. He'll give us a sense of where he's at for the 2025 season. We'll also give you a little bit of flavor with volleyball. Is Danny Busboom Kelly going to walk right into the Big Ten and win it in year one, Nate? I think a lot of folks think she might. Nebraska's got some first-team All-Big Ten players. We'll talk about that as well. Plenty more to get to here on it's an offensive line preview eventually, and then Michael Bruntz right after this here on the KLIN Husker Hour.
Your Saturday morning source for everything Huskers is right here. You're listening to the KLIN Husker Hour on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
Into the swing of things with getting closer to football season. We've got a regular guest back on the show, first time in a while. It's Michael Bruntz from Husker247. Bruntz, getting towards the end of summer. How are you?
Not bad. How's it going?
Oh, pretty good. Hey, I just wanted to mention before we get into Husker football, you agreed to come on the show yesterday, and then an A's rookie goes 6 for 6 with 4 home runs. Coincidence?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Nick Kurtz was spraying it all over the yard in Houston. I was kind of wondering if we were going to see Bryce Matthews have to pitch late in that one because they went with a different position player. Yeah,
he delivered. Your A's have a couple of bright spots in terms of their young players. If only they had actual city to play in. But that's another story. Nebraska had a visit out to a city out west that the A's will eventually maybe play in, Las Vegas. I understand you weren't out there, but what were some of your biggest takeaways from Big Ten Media Days, whether it was Matt Rule or some of the players, or perception of where the team's at from other media?
Yeah, no, I think the what you heard from Matt Rule was just kind of what the feeling was. I think during the spring that it's there's quiet confidence. I feel like that they've got it trending in a good direction, and because of that, I mean, I think they're not shying from expectations and saying, okay, we should be good, or we have the ability to be good. And I think there's been a little bit of a shift from maybe the way they're talking about things versus the last couple of years. So that stood out to me. I think that's kind of been the feeling, though, really this whole calendar year, since spring ball. So that stood out. I mean, I think what you've also saw at that event was, Dylan Raiola has been the face of the program for better, for worse, since probably the midpoint of last season. But this was kind of his first big conference debut in front of media and having to, represent Nebraska in that way. I thought he held up really well. He kind of played along with the Mahomes comparisons, which are kind of obvious at this point, but it's his program. From people I've talked to that have been around the program this year, there's no question who the leader is over there, who's going to make this thing go. And I think you've seen him kind of embrace that leadership more so just because it's his team rather than, he's just the quarterback and has to lead by virtue of the position he plays. So that kind of stood out to me as well, and just kind of his comfort with being in that role. I think that's good overall for the team because, wherever he goes, guys are going to follow. So that stood out to me as well as kind of a takeaway from Vegas.
With Dylan Raiola asserting himself as a leader, how much of that is just sort of the natural progression of being the quarterback, and how much of that is him, and how much of that is sort of the progression of this program from where the coaches are doing a lot of the talking and a lot of the driving to now one that is more player-led?
It's all of that. Matt Rule hit on just how player-led it is now. And by year 3, that's the hope, right? Like you've had guys that have been in the program for multiple years who have kind of been through the expectations and how things are supposed to go and how the coaches want them to look, and they can kind of filter that down now to their teammates and handle problems and come up with new ideas for kind of how to help chemistry and stuff like that. I think that's kind of the natural progression of things. For Raiola, it's interesting, I think, because he comes in last year, obviously has the 5 stars tagged to his name at all times, as a former 5-star quarterback. There comes with that a lot of expectation. And, the problem is he's still an 18, 19-year-old college kid in a locker room of veterans, being expected to lead. And sometimes that's not a natural thing. Like, I think guys can try, and I think Dylan certainly tried to do that. But I think just having an extra year under his belt, having the 13 games, his word carries a little bit more weight. I mean, even, go back to the spring when we had the little looks here and there at the way practices were running, he was really asserting himself in practices in a way that we didn't see him do a year ago. And part of that is comfort with the offense. Part of that is having a year of having kind of gone through the Big Ten and having to kind of take your lumps a little bit. And, I think he's more importantly embracing that because, I think some guys will say, yeah, I'm a leader or I'm going to try and do this. But I think he's kind of really walking the walk too. And I think that's where you really have something special there when you get somebody that's as bought in as he is to this whole thing.
Talking with Michael Bruntz from Husker247 here on Husker Hour. Bruntz, if you're Matt Rule, what's your number one concern heading into this season?
Well, I mean, you got a lot of them. For as much as we kind of talk about the changes they've made in the offseason, I mean, you still have 3 new coordinators. You're at least on offense still looking for depth at the running back spot. I mean, I think that's probably the biggest area of concern over there as they get started with fall camp is, Emmett Johnson's the guy, but is it Isaiah Mosey? Is it Mekhi Nelson? There's so many guys, Quentin Ives, there's guys that are on the roster. Some guys have been on the roster for a while, but haven't been in a big role yet. And that's kind of a concern in a position where, you're probably going to need 3 or 4 guys over the course of the season. I mean, Emmett Johnson was probably Nebraska's, 3rd back, 4th back to start the year last year. So, that's just kind of the nature of things. That would be my concern on offense. Defensively, I outwardly Nebraska is projecting confidence about what their defensive line is right now. I need to see it, I think, just because it's kind of the same thing. I mean, you have a lot of guys that are options, but not a lot of guys that have had to kind of step up and, give you 40, 50 snaps in a game during their careers. So I think those would be my concerns. I don't know if those 2 things are keeping Matt Rule up at night, but I think those are the 2 kind of position battles and groups to watch as we go through fall camp is how those things shake out. And I don't know. I mean, I think beyond just the between the lines stuff, I think for Nebraska this fall camp, it's continuing to kind of play and practice and operate with expectation and what that means in a program that's only been to a bowl game once since 2016. I mean, it's still fairly uncharted territory for Nebraska to be mentioned as a potential fringe playoff team or kind of one of those next team up type categories for getting them potentially getting into the playoff.
Michael, you talk about depth at running back. The fact that they have moved Mosey from wide receiver to running back, how much of a black mark or a discredit is that on Quentin Ives? I mean, he was a guy that through the bowl practices was a guy we kept hearing, here's a rising stock, this guy's coming. And that seemed to continue through the spring, but now you move a guy who was a 4-star wide receiver over to running back. Do you take that as sort of a sign of concern about Quentin Ives? Is it just trying to get another high level type player there? How do you read that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I read it too much as a connection to Ives. I mean, they're kind of different backs. I think Nebraska envisions Ives as maybe not like strictly a Dante Dowdell type back, but they want him to be that kind of bigger, short yardage, back that they can kind of hand the ball off to, and he's going to get you some yards between the tackles. I mean, I think that's kind of what they see him as. For Mosey, he played running back as a senior in high school, so it's not a position that's completely unfamiliar to him. I think what it does signal a little bit is they've got somebody that they feel like can make some plays, and they need to get him on the field as soon as possible. And that's one avenue to doing that more quickly than at wide receiver. I mean, I think wide receiver actually has pretty good depth, knock on wood, as you get into the start of fall camp here. You know, and I think too, you know, consider what Dana Holgerson did last year with some of his play calling and how he used the running backs and specifically Emmett Johnson. I mean, there's a lot of work for those guys at running back as pass catchers out of the backfield. And I think that's one thing that he kind of brings to the table into that conversation is, you know, not only is he a pretty good runner, but he's also got good hands too. So I think I read it more that way. I mean, and like I said, I mean, you're going to need at least 3. I think they'd ideally like to have 4 that they could potentially trust. And you're kind of just adding, you know, another talented guy to that mix that, again, I mean, you know, how many career carries does Quentin Ives have? It's fewer than 10. You know, you've got Booth, you've got Parker, who are both true freshmen. Mekhi Nelson has, you know, looks good, I think, in practices we've heard, but is still an unproven commodity there. So I guess that it maybe also just kind of giving themselves some more options to potentially fill out that 3 or 4 list of guys at that running back spot.
We'll get you out of here on this one, Bruntz. What's the biggest surprise you've taken away from this offseason in general? Anything that's caught you off guard, position change, player development, anything like that?
That's a good one. I don't know if there's anything that's really caught me off guard. I mean, I think, you know, the Mosey thing is interesting because, you know, when you have a position change like that, like there's sometimes guys kind of just get lost in the shuffle a little bit. If, you know, you're at one position, then you're at another position, and, you know, do you have a position at that point? But this one feels like it's got more intent behind it. Like that's the difference in this one to me is it, you know, this is a guy that Matt Rule says is going to play early. That catches my attention a little bit when somebody says that and Matt Rule says that. So was it a surprise? No, not really, but it's intriguing, I think, because as you kind of get into the season, I think one thing that Nebraska really wanted to do this offseason is they wanted to find more explosive plays. I mean, how many times last year did it feel like in order for Nebraska to do anything offensively, you had to really have things go well? It was going to be a 10-play drive and just, you know, really kind of grind the gears a little bit to generate the offense. And I think they're, you know, going to go into this year looking for more big plays. It just makes your margin of error so much easier when you have those. So that move to running back and kind of what he was as a high school player kind of intrigued me a little bit that they made that move when they did, because, you know, coming out of high school, he was a big play threat. He runs hard. You know, as a running back, I think averaged like 8 or 9 yards a carry. So that caught my attention a little bit. Maybe not a surprise, but I'm definitely, you know, you kind of put the star next to that one in the notebook as you go through fall camp, I think.
Yeah, something to watch, especially at a position where you're not sure about the depth yet. That's for sure. Well, I lied. We'll get you one more. Where are the Broncos finishing in the AFC West this year? Call your shot.
I will say a strong second.
Okay. To LA or Vegas or Kansas City in first?
I'll still get Kansas City's probably got one more year, I think.
Okay.
The refs are still on their side, so they've got that in the back pocket. But I think Denver is trending upwards, so I will say a strong second. That's turned into a tough little conference there. I mean, when you've got Peyton, Carroll, Harbaugh, and Andy Reid, that's not a bad lineup of head coaches.
I don't know that you'd find a better division of coaches in any sport ever. Like, that's all 4 of them have won Super Bowls. That's crazy. Or, well, yeah. Harbaugh's been to the Super Bowl, hadn't won it, but
right.
Yeah. Anyway,
national championship. He won a national championship. That counts for something.
Yeah. Whether it was tainted or not, you know, depending on who you talk to, Tony Petitti or Sharon Moore, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, good stuff. Thanks a lot, Bruntz. It's only about a month or so until the season, so we're about to shift into fall camp mode, and we appreciate the time.
Anytime, guys. Take care.
All right, yep.
Bruntz,
Michael Bruntz there on Husker Hour. Yeah, the Mosey thing is that's a good one, because not only does he have the explosiveness that I think they're looking for, and coming from a position where you want to have young depth at wide receiver to a position where you don't have depth that you know of at running back. The most interesting thing to me there is he'll fit with how Dana Holgorsen wants his running backs to operate, because he was going to be a receiver. He's going to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield just like Emmett Johnson does.
Right. I mean, maybe there's something to be said there about a blurred line between running backs and receivers. I know that was a point of discussion last year with Dana Holgorsen taking over the offense, was that while you had your receivers and your running backs, the line, the boundary between them wasn't nearly as stark. So that could play into it some too. And, hopefully it's a good sign about your wide receivers that you feel like, even though you play 3 wide receivers most plays and you only play 1 running back, you feel like you have 5 or 6 really good wide receivers, and you're not that sure about what you have at running back behind Johnson.
Yeah. And you're going to handle that receiver preview next week. I know they talked a lot about KLIN Smith and Quinn Clark. Again, they were mentioned a little bit last year as potentially being able to being ready to get in there. They didn't really, but who knows? We'll see. So anyway, we're not previewing receivers today. We're previewing the offensive line. We'll be doing that right when we come back here on Husker Hour. Stay with us.
Giving you an inside look at everything Huskers. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on 1499.3 KLIN.
Big thanks to Husker247's Michael Bruntz. Just joined us. If you missed that, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast feed on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music. Make sure you are subscribed and get your notifications. Give us a 5-star rating, review, tell your friends. We appreciate it. And we're on the StreamYard right now, and you can watch us break down this offensive line group, which has quite a few returnees. There's a few newcomers and departures to touch on as well. But it's, Nate, the first year in a long time that you will not see a certain someone penciled in or penned in at right tackle, with Bryce Benhart finally using up his eligibility. It's a brave new world out there at right tackle.
Yeah, a whole different picture, and yet a lot of familiar faces. I mean, you've got Teddy Prohaska back. You've got Turner Corcoran back, maybe. That was maybe the newsiest thing to come out of media days, was the fact that Matt Rule does not expect Turner Corcoran to be full go at the beginning of fall camp, which is tough for Turner because, I mean, he's going to be right in the thick of things competing for a spot on the offensive line, but you have some veterans there. You've got a good amount of experience back there at the offensive line, and the couple of places where you're adding newcomers, you're adding one guy who started for Alabama and one guy who started for Notre Dame in the college football playoffs. So,
yeah.
So you're those are kind of the two quiet additions that you haven't heard a whole lot about, but you feel really good about. So, my feeling about the offensive line is that the front five, the first five, are pretty good, are going to be maybe a top third of the Big Ten offensive line. It's tough to figure, though, where they're going to go from there.
Yeah, and I think if we kind of focus on the newcomers and the departures, I think if you look at the couple of the guys Nebraska had last year, they did well in getting guys out of the portal. Ben Scott was a 2-year contributor, 2-year starter at center for him. Micah Mazuka dealt with some suspension issues, but when he was on the field, he was effective, and that was a good pickup for them. And obviously Ben Hart leaves as well. And then you look at the newcomers, like you mentioned, Spindler and Pritchett we fully expect those two to have 2 of those top 5 spots. And so they've got a good track record of bringing guys in and being able to contribute. Then, the guys in those other 3 places, Evans, I think we're pretty settled on at center.
Yes.
And then Lutovsky, obviously, they think a lot of him. They took him to media days. He's a senior. He's paid his dues here in Lincoln, and he stayed around. And you would expect him to be one of the starters as well. That really just leaves one of the tackle spots, whether it's right or left. I think probably right. And Turner Corcoran not fully healthy. Gunnar Gatula, I would think, would have every chance to win that job. There's also been kind of the out of nowhere name. It's Tyler Kanak. He may be in the mix there at left tackle or right tackle. And then Teddy Prohaska. Can this finally be the year that he can be healthy, put it all together, fulfill the potential, terrific size. We all know the story, but he just hasn't been able to stay on the field. So that's really the only job that I see up for grabs. I don't know if you see it differently.
No, not at all. I think 4 of the 5 spots are pretty well spoken for, and you have a real battle for that other tackle spot. But what's interesting is you have pretty big question marks about all 3 of them, about all 3 guys you mentioned, Gatula, Prohaska, and Kanak. I mean, Gatula had the shoulder surgery in the offseason. By all accounts, he's recovered fully and should be full go. So you feel like he's the most stable of the 3 options. I mean, he started there for you last year, and I don't think the shoulder surgery was a terribly major thing, but he also didn't participate in spring ball. So how well has he recovered from that? Tyler Canucks, the high riser, the fast riser, really of the roster. He was a guy that, it was kind of in the mix last year, but didn't play a whole lot. And now you're talking about putting him at one of your tackle spots on the offensive line. Teddy Prohaska, it's just tough for me because by talent, by recruiting rankings, and I know you don't want to build your depth chart based on the recruiting stars, but he's the guy who you would think would have the highest ceiling, but you just can't expect him to be healthy. That's the short of it is he has not been able to stay healthy in his Husker career, and that's a shame for him, but it's tough to really expect a whole lot out of him when he's not been able to stay on the field. But it is interesting that this is a 3-horse race, and you feel like Gatula would have the edge of the 3 just having played there last year. But also, Tyler Kanak could play his way into that, could force his way into the starting lineup. So I'll bet that is the position battle, especially on offense, that everybody has their eyes on through fall camp.
Yeah. As far as a player that if I had to pick a guy who was just steady Eddie, did not show up in terms of having big mistakes this season, give me the center, Justin Evans. Last couple of years, you haven't really seen a lot of the center position, which is a good thing because Ben Scott was very consistent. And if you can have that same type of performance from Evans, who is making a shift over from guard, let's not forget that he's expected to win the center job, but this is his first time that he'll be playing center in meaningful snaps. If you can have that type of consistency out of that position again for another season and give that to Dylan Raiola and this offense, that's going to go a long way to having success for Dana Holgorsen in the first full season that he'll have. Where do you look in terms of if you have to pick one guy to be really good this year out of those 5 spots?
Well, Evans makes a lot of sense. My best bet would be Lutovsky, but Evans is interesting there, and I worry that we've not talked enough about it because of all the duties that get shifted onto you as the center. As we saw, snaps are not a sure thing. An NFL All-Pro center could not handle snaps.
Yeah.
His first year had intermittent troubles with them. And then you're talking about, having to make the calls at the line, and Evans is going to have that mental load on him as well as the physical load. And so we're going to be asking a lot of Justin Evans this year on that offensive line. I'm hopeful that he's able to shoulder that load well because it'll determine the rest of the offensive line's success. I'm really interested to see what Rocco Spindler can do for a full year. I think, he's one of those guys that could really push this thing forward, especially if Nebraska wants to run between the tackles. I think their ability to hammer away will be determined on what Rocco Spindler is able to do run blocking.
Yeah. All right. 2 more things. Pick our starters and then scale of 1 to 10. So I'll start. I'll go left to right: Pritchett, Spindler, Evans, Lutovsky, and Tyler Canuck. I'll buy the hype. What about you? Who are your 5?
Okay, I'm with you for the first 4. I'm going to hold on Gunnar Gatula,
Okay.
but if Canuck starts there, I won't be shocked.
All right. And then in terms of confidence on a scale of 1 to 10, I will go 6.5. I feel like you do like the Henry Lutovsky in his same spot. Justin Evans, that in the interior he's been good, and Rocco Spindler and Elijah Pritchett. I expect more from Spindler than Pritchett, but Pritchett's certainly got potential too. And then right tackle's kind of up in the air. But Donovan Raiola, 2 things are really good for him. He's the longest tenured assistant, which is really good because O-line players take the longest to develop. So he's done a great job in his role. The only guy that predates Rule. Where are you on the 1 to 10 scale?
The number that popped into my head is 6. So we're in the same neighborhood. I think they're going to be good. I wouldn't assure it to metaphysical certitude, but I do think that they'll be solid. And could even be a top, like I said, a top third of the Big Ten offensive line. So I'll say 6.
Yeah. All right. Well, one thing that is a metaphysical certitude, Nebraska is going to be really good at volleyball again next year.
What?
There's 4 players on the All Big Ten team preseason. We'll tell you who is picked to win the Big Ten this season. Hint, there's a new coach, and it's still going to be a good program. And then also Nebraska basketball. Husker Hoops gets a new recruit. We'll tell you who they picked up and all that as we continue on with Husker Hour right after this.
Big change.
with the Huskers news this week. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
All right, time to make my grandma really happy and talk some volleyball, Nate. Nebraska is looking at 4 members of the all Big Ten preseason team. This is a team voted on by the coaches in the league, 18 coaches. There's 20 players on the team. Nebraska's got 20%, and that's Andy Jackson, Bergen Riley, Harper Murray, and Rebecca Alec. And Nate, on top of that, the 3 juniors, Jackson, Riley, and Harper Murray, those 3 are 3 of 5 unanimous first team or preseason all Big Ten selections by the coaches. I think that John Cook left the cupboard pretty stocked for Danny Busboom Kelly.
Yeah, I think they're going to be in good shape. And the fact that you have an outside, a middle, and your setter, I mean, that's like in football having a D lineman, a linebacker, and a safety as all conference, and not just all conference, but all. And I presume, though I do not know this, I can't imagine Danny Busboom Kelly could vote for her own players.
Yeah, she may not.
So the other 17 players, or the other 17 coaches said, okay, these 3 are absolutely the 3 best. So half of a lineup in Big Ten volleyball, the best players are Huskers. So, that tends to be a good thing when you have production across the board. And these coaches know sometimes weird stuff happens in balloting, whether it's media or coaches polls, but these coaches know the talent is all there. Danny Busboom Kelly has the coaching chops to deal with a really good team, and any hiccups that might just be a natural byproduct of a first year coach in a program are going to be pretty small. So I'm not surprised, maybe a little surprised, just because you'd figure, okay, Penn State's the champ until otherwise proven. But at the same time, Nebraska's stacked. There's just no other way to say it. They're stacked. So the Big Ten coaches see what's coming.
Yes. And there's one libero that was on that 20 member team. Obviously, you are going to deal with the loss of Lexi Rodriguez this year. We talked about, position battles and being uncertain at positions for Husker football. For Husker volleyball, that's a big spot to fill. But I feel like still, even so, a player as good as Lexi Rodriguez was, you feel pretty good about Lainey Choboy and Olivia Malk with how they've played the last couple seasons too.
Yeah, you don't just throw up your hands and go, my goodness, they're going to fall off there. I mean, there may be a little bit of a drop off. It would be unavoidable when you are trying to replace the best libero in Nebraska volleyball history and one of the best liberos to ever do it at the college level. I mean, it's just tough to be that good. But you expect that Nebraska will still be very tough defensively and be able to make up for that loss. And I mean, another year of development for Murray and Bergen Riley and Andy Jackson. They should be well equipped to deal with that loss and make up for it offensively, if nothing else.
Yeah. And Danny Busboom Kelly is going to be well equipped to step right in and contend for the title. In fact, the coaches voted on who they think will win the title this year, and it is Nebraska coming in at that top spot preseason in the conference. And look, she was very good at Louisville. She built that program up. They were in the Final Four. They were right on the doorstep of a national title, and they gave her the platform to recruit the top players. She's going to have all the same infrastructure and then some at Nebraska. So yeah, there's no reason to think that she can't just pick right up where Coach Cook left off.
Yeah, there may be just a little slip, a little hiccup just in the translation from John Cook to Danny Busboom Kelly. But I mean, hey, she was an assistant under John Cook, so it's not going to be that different. But yeah, it's tough to see them doing anything but being right at the front of the pack of the Big Ten and being a national championship contender. The one other maybe worry or question to answer is how quickly can they settle in with as tough a schedule as they're starting with. I mean, they're jumping into the deep end of the pool during non-conference. And so, you hope they don't give up too much ground early, But, the other side of it is if they come out and win those matches in the AVCA against Kentucky and Nashville, I mean, you've got a real chance to be sitting there talking about, being a number one regional seed and having to have somebody knock you off the perch instead of trying to win your way up to it.
Yeah. And hey, John Cook never played in the in PBA. Here you go. You get to play in PBA right off the bat too.
Yep.
So there's a lot coming early on for Nebraska volleyball, but we're excited about it. Danny Busman Kelly, year one. It's almost here. All right, almost here to the end of the show. We've got one more segment to go. A couple of little nuggets for Husker men's basketball. We'll get to a commit and then a player playing overseas in a little off-season tournament as well. We'll get you all of that info and get you on your way to the weekend. The last one of July. Next week, it'll be August, and it'll be the month where Husker football and volleyball actually happens. So we're almost there. Come right back after this, finish up the show, get you ready for the weekend here on Husker Hour.
You're listening. Husker football, basketball, baseball, and beyond. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on 1499.3 KLIN.
Wrapping things up, thanks to Michael Bruntz earlier in the show, and we did the offensive line preview. Just two position previews left to go, Nate. It's wide receiver and defensive back. So we'll wrap those two up over the next 2 weeks, and we'll be into fall camp as well. So it's just about football season, but there was some basketball news. Nebraska's got a new commit, Colin Rice from Waukee, Iowa. It is 6'7", 180-pound small forward. Won him over Northwestern, Iowa, and Illinois. And then Leo Curtis, who is the big man coming in, 7'1", Icelandic. He played in the under-20 Eurobasket tournament in Greece. 12 points, 8 rebounds, 6 blocks, and a loss to Germany, and led Iceland with 14 points per game. Led all players with 2.7 blocks per game. 7'1". Also a good passer, Nate, so he'll fit right in the offense.
No doubt. I mean, that was one of the things you felt like Nebraska really lacked last year, was that post that could pass, that you could run the offense through. And so the offense really bogged down at times. So Leo Curtis, the prototypical Fred Hoiberg post, if such a thing exists, and you're excited about his potential. And, you talk about the recruit out of Iowa, and it just goes to show how much how much credibility Fred Hoiberg's name carries in the state of Iowa still. I mean, it feels like Nebraska, especially after the firing of Fran McCaffrey, can pretty much go in and get who they want out of the state of Iowa. And though it's been frustrating that Nebraska's not been able to mine Omaha well, they're at least able to get basketball talent out of Iowa and make up for that deficiency.
Yeah, Colin Rice actually mentioned that his family is in awe of Fred Hoiberg still after his exploits as a player and coach at Iowa State. The other item from Big Ten Media Days we didn't really hit on, Tony Petitti continuing to try to use what leverage he thinks he may have to get the SEC to go to 9 conference games and or get this playoff format that he's trying to push for, where the Big Ten would have 4 auto bids with top 2 automatically in, and then 3 through 6 doing kind of a mini playoff. Think he moved the ball at all on that, Nate, or is he still kind of spinning his wheels there?
I think he's spinning his wheels, especially on the front with the SEC. I think they're dug in that they're only going to play 8 conference games, and they feel like there's no good reason for their teams to play a 9th, which is a shame. I feel like they should. But unfortunately, I think the SEC teams are dug in saying our 8 are tougher than your 9, which I think is nonsensical. But that's where they are, and I don't think they're moving.
Yeah, Tony Petitti, you keep fighting that good fight, I guess. But we'll at least maybe keep the 12-team format the way it is this year.
Please.
And hey, maybe even a year after if they can't agree. You never know how long they might be able to let this thing go without some massive upheaval change. You never know. Anyway, we are all done with the show here and all done with the month of July shows. So next week, just Nate, and it is our first show of August. We'll be previewing wide receivers for Michael Bruntz, for Kenny Larrabee, and Nate Rohr. I'm Cole Stukenholtz. I'll be back in a couple weeks. We'll talk to Nate next week with a brand new edition of the KLIN Husker Hour. Until then, go Big Red.